Time to kill some monsters. So, I have just finished watching Monster Hunter, the brand new video game movie adaptation by the one and only Paul W.S. Anderson, a director that has the biggest mixed career that I've seen. As you know, the director, you may not know this, but the director became kind of a big name in Hollywood after his adaptation of Mortal Kombat in 1995, a film that I still really enjoy, even though I can understand that it's objectively pretty much a bad movie. Then he went on and he directed one of my favourite science fiction horror films, just sci-fi films in general, which is Event Horizon, a really good fucked up, messed up sci-fi film that I really think is really well done and really underrated. So check that film out, it's really good. Paul W.S. Anderson is most famous for bringing us the Resident Evil franchise into movie form. They weren't very good. I quite like the first one. I've got a soft spot for the first one. But yeah, they're not very good. They apparently get worse as they go along. So it's interesting to see him come back and give us another video game adaptation in Monster Hunter, also starring his wife, Mila Jovovich, in a role that is standard, I think, when it concerns Mila as an actress. But anyway, let's get into it. I'm going to kick it off with the positives. Literally, this film is very brand new. I think it only came out like last year. Was it last year or was it this year? Was it January? I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, so this is very fresh in my mind right now. I've just literally finished watching it. And I will say, when it concerns positives, I think it's a very good looking film. I think some of the wide shots, some of the big shots showing the wider world, and you know, the framing of some shots are really well done and look really good. Especially if you're watching this in the highest resolution it can. It's a very strikingly good looking movie, and I think the visual effects and some of the visual choices are just really well done, I think. And I think that is what I think attracts a lot of people to these films. And I will say, before I go any further, this is a definition of what I call a popcorn movie. You don't necessarily have to tune your brain into this one. You can just get some popcorn, sit back and enjoy the monsters and the explosions and the crazy action. Because that's what this is. This is a crazy action film with really good visuals. The monsters look really good in this, which I was actually quite worried about. But they look decent. The monsters look good. Like I said, the overall visual flair of the film looks decent. I quite enjoyed the look of this movie. Especially when the majority of the film takes place in a desert dune landscape. You could say it's a bit underwhelming, but I feel the colour grading and the choices they went through to make this film look really good helps the film when it concerns these kind of drab kind of location choices. But yeah, I think the film looks really good. That is the only kind of really positive I have in this film. I will preface, before going on to my negatives, I will preface that I enjoyed this film for what it was. It's a dumb action movie with silly, over-the-top set pieces. And yeah, if you're in the market for that kind of film, just to escape the real world and just go into some crazy monster hunting action movie flair, it serves that really well. And I think if you can go into it with no expectations, you might enjoy yourself. I enjoyed myself. Anyway, let's get into negatives. My first negative is the characters are just, I don't care about the characters at all. I think the plot device of bringing characters from our real world into the Monster Hunter world is just, it was unnecessary to create a Monster Hunter narrative. They could have gone down a lot of different routes for narratives for Monster Hunter, but the whole crux of, oh yeah, this military group goes through this teleportation thing by mistake, they get thrust into the Monster Hunter world. Super cliche, don't think it served the story, and I just think it was a bad take. Like I said, the characters, very, very uninspiring, very just, they're there, like they're not even interesting. Tony Jaa, which is really good to see him in another movie, by the way. Tony Jaa is a really good actor. He brings nothing really to this film, in my opinion. Mila Jovovich and Tony Jaa have this dynamic in this movie where he speaks his own language and she doesn't understand him, and it goes to and fro from there. That's bringing that forward. Actually, their dynamic in this film is very, very childlike and very childish, in that their first engagement and their first kind of meeting is kind of brings the film to a halt, in my opinion, and it kind of like slows the film down when the film should have kept pace, because it opens, it's going 100 miles an hour, but by the time you get into half an hour of the film, it does slow down and crank to a halt before the final like 20 minutes when it all goes crazy again. It has a big pacing issue, in my opinion, and I feel that kind of hurts the movie for you get into the action, it's getting ramping up, and then it just slows down and goes like, put the brakes on, let's do all this kind of like, you know, this relationship bullshit with these two characters. Not a relationship in terms of romantic relationships, I just mean they slow the film down to have these two interact, and it's not engaging. It's kind of awful in some aspects, where they are just fighting each other for the first like 10 minutes of their meeting, and it's just not funny, it's not entertaining. It's just like, okay, can we get on to the rest of the film? The film in essence doesn't really have a plot. It's mostly about Mila Jovovich's character trying to get back home, which is a very, very cliche story for this kind of movie. I just think, aside from the visuals, everything else in this film is kind of bland. It's kind of uninspired. This film couldn't be more generic video game adaptation if it tried. It's very cliche in mostly everything it does, and that's the problem. Like I said, the pacing is all over the place. It screeches to a halt when it should have ramped things up. The characters they're just there. They're not really, they don't feel like they're a part of the film. They're just there for like window dressing, and the relationship built throughout this film is not entertaining. It's not engaging. You just want to hurry. You want it to hurry up and get to the main crux of the monster action, which is what you would have come to see when it comes to Monster Hunter. But yeah, so that's how I feel. Even though I've got all these problems with this film, I still came away going, that was better than it should have ever been. Like it's better than it has any right to be. And I think if you're looking for that dumb action monster movie, this film does that in spades. And I think you can switch your brain off and just have a good old time watching this film. I think it's all right. It has a lot of problems, but I think it's okay. So I would say, if you fancy it, the monsters look good, the visuals look good, the framing is pretty decent. Everything other than that isn't very good, but it is quite entertaining in its absurd and dumb action. So yeah, I would kind of recommend it on a whim. And yeah, that's what I thought of Monster Hunter. It's harmless, dumb, over the top action fun with a lot of issues that I think can be overlooked if you're just looking for a dumb action film to kill some time. As we're in lockdown, killing time is essential. So anyway, as always, if you like videos like this, if you want me to do more kind of thoughts videos on films like this, because I've not really done this before, I kind of have with my I Think You Should Watch series, but they're more positive reviews for films that are more kind of underground. But yeah, if you want my thoughts on more kind of bigger budget movies that have come out, that I've seen, let me know down in the comments, and let me know what you thought of Monster Hunter. As always, hit that like button, because it's the best way to support the channel and get my videos out to the YouTube world. And as always, I am Jason, and I had a good time with this film, even though it has its issues. But yeah, until next time, I am out.